After spending months in a cramped prison cell, this man, Eros, was finally a free man. The gates swung open, and he breathed in the fresh air, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. His freedom came with a price, a favor owed to a wealthy old family friend of his parents, a man named Bruce. Bruce had pulled some strings and used his vast connections to get Eros out. A gesture he claimed was an act of loyalty to his deceased friends. But there's one deal for the exchange. It was simple. Eros had to become a bodyguard for Bruce's daughter, Reese. Eros had no idea why a girl like Reese needed a bodyguard. He had seen her pictures and assumed she was just another spoiled rich kid who liked to party. It was a simple job that Bruce had made more complicated than it needed to be. On the other hand, Reese felt like her dad was being dramatic. She was a grown woman, and she could take care of herself. She had a point. She wasn't the kind of girl who was into partying or getting into trouble. But Bruce was right to worry. He knew that his daughter had been receiving anonymous threats for months. He had also received a tip that the stalker was going to be at her ballet recital. He knew that if he had been a minute later, Reese would have been in the hospital. Despite her father's concern, Reese didn't want a bodyguard, especially one that her father had picked out. She saw it as an invasion of her privacy and a sign that her father didn't trust her. On the other hand, Eros didn't have to worry about a roof over his head or a meal to eat. He was grateful for the opportunity and vowed to stay out of Reese's way. He wanted to be a professional, nothing more. But that all changed when he saw her. He was taken by her beauty and her rebellious attitude. Bruce saw the way he looked at his daughter and gave him a stern warning. He reminded Eros that he was just a bodyguard and nothing more. He told him that he was only there to protect her and nothing more. Eros didn't need the reminder. He knew his place. He was not a charity case. He was a professional, and he was there to do his job. He was not going to let a spoiled girl like Reese get in the way of his job. If you're wondering why Eros has so much hate in his heart for rich people, it's because he's an orphan who grew up with nothing. He lived with his two best friends, Peyton and Diego. The three of them met at the orphanage and were inseparable. They decided to leave the orphanage and start a new life in the city when they grew up. They were forced to steal to survive. They weren't bad kids. They were just desperate. They hated rich people because they felt like they didn't care about the poor. But they weren't just stealing for themselves. They were stealing to save up enough money to get Diego's little brother out of the orphanage and to be able to go to school. They had a plan, but it all went wrong when Eros sacrificed himself to save Peyton and Diego. He was caught and sent to prison, leaving his friends and the little boy behind. Because of this, Eros vowed that he would only do his job and not get attached to anyone. He couldn't trust a rich person. He felt that they were all the same. They didn't care about poor people. They didn't understand the hardships and pain that he had gone through, especially Reese, a rich girl who had everything handed to her on a silver platter. But Eros didn't know Reese, not yet. Eros had no idea what he was getting himself into. The minute he stepped onto Reese's school campus, he knew his job wasn't going to be a piece of cake. He soon found out that a lot of the rich kids at her school were even worse than he thought. He found out that a lot of them were bullying her, and that a lot of them called her a cheap girl who only wanted to be with rich guys. But that wasn't even the worst part. He found out that Raul, her ex-boyfriend, was still bothering her. Raul wanted revenge on Reese because she had broken up with him in front of all of their friends. Eros also learned that the mysterious threats hadn't stopped. The day of her National Ballet Championship audition, her ankle was injured. Reese told Eros that she was fine and that she had just slipped. She told him that she didn't want him to worry, but he had a feeling that something was wrong. Eros finally found out the truth when he saw that her ballet slippers had been tampered with by Raul. He finally knew why Reese needed him. The girl who used to hate him was now starting to trust him. She finally asked him about his past and why he was so willing to protect her. Eros opened up and told Reese about his life. He explained that ever since his parents passed away in a car accident, he had no one but his two best friends, Peyton and Diego. He told her that he had no other choice but to take this job to help his friend's little brother get an education. Reese was touched by his story and told him that she understood his pain because her mom had also passed away. But Eros cut her off and told her that they were not the same. He said that her life was easy and she didn't have the right to complain. He told her to go have fun with her rich friends. He then took Reese to the party she was going to attend. But when they arrived, he wasn't allowed to enter by Reese herself. Later that night, Eros couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He went to the party to make sure Reese was okay. But when he got there, he was shocked. The rich kids were having a PowerPoint party. Yes, you read that right. Instead of a DJ, a dance floor, or a game night, they were presenting. It was just a bunch of weirdos presenting random stuff. But Eros's confusion turned to anger when Raul got on stage. Raul was presenting a slideshow, and its only purpose was to humiliate Reese. He called her out for being a bad person and told everyone that she was spending time with a poor bodyguard. Reese, disgusted, went on stage and threw her drink on Raul. Raul was humiliated, and he went to slap Reese, but Eros got in front of her and told him to not even think about it. Raul was a coward who didn't hesitate to use force against a girl. After the dramatic scene, Eros's name was on everyone's lips. The girls at the party were all fawning over him. They all wanted to be with the handsome bodyguard who had saved Reese. But Reese was also curious about him. She was curious about a boy who was not swayed by all the glitz and glamour of her world. She started to check his social media, and she soon found out that he was nothing like her other friends. He didn't care about money, fame, or clout. He cared about his friends, his loyalty, and his family. The boy who had saved her from her ex-boyfriend was a good person. He was not a playboy like most of her friends. Eros, however, wasn't affected by his newfound fame. He didn't care about all the girls who were trying to talk to him. He was only concerned about his friends, Peyton and Diego. He was loyal to them because he knew they were the only people who would be there for him when he wasn't doing so well. And he knew that the people who were fawning over him wouldn't be there for him in the end. After that drama, Reese was sure she and Eros would be inseparable. She'd spent the whole night thinking about him, hoping they'd spend the day together. So when she saw him leave without her, her heart sank. But what she saw next made her blood run cold. She watched as Eros and Peyton got on a motorbike. She watched as Peyton clung to him tightly, her arms wrapped around his waist. Reese had never been so jealous in her life. She followed them to a sketchy-looking part of the city. She saw them holding a crowbar and standing near a motorbike. Then they started beating the bike, and Reese decided to join. For the first time in her life, Reese was a rebel. She was a runaway princess who was finally tasting what it was like to break the rules. And she had to admit, she liked it. She liked the thrill of it, the feeling of doing something dangerous. She asked Eros what they were doing, and he told her that they were destroying a rich kid's motorbike. It was a bike that belonged to the man who had gotten him sent to jail. Reese was shocked. The man who was so stoic and serious was now acting like a bad boy. She was seeing a side of Eros that no one else had ever seen. The more time she spent with him, the more she felt like she was a part of his world. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. She skipped her ballet practice that day and went with Eros to a cafe. It was the first time she had ever skipped a class, but she didn't care. She was having the time of her life. She also found out that they had something in common. They both loved to sing. They would spend hours singing karaoke, laughing, and getting to know each other. As the days went by, Reese felt a sense of comfort that she had never felt before. She was finally experiencing what it was like to be a normal teenager. She was no longer a princess in a tower. She was a girl who was living her life to the fullest.
Sun breaks through the windows wide. I take a breath I've held inside. The walls fall down, the sky feels near. A song of joy I've longed to hear. Every step, a lighter heart. Every smile, a brand new start. No more shadows, no more chains. Only sunlight in my veins.
But her happiness was short-lived. She couldn't help but feel jealous when Eros was with Peyton. She knew she had no right to be jealous, but she couldn't help it. She watched as Eros and Peyton talked. They were so close that it looked like they were more than friends. Reese's heart sank, and she watched as the two of them disappeared. Meanwhile, Peyton was questioning Eros's loyalty. She told him that she didn't understand why he was so comfortable working for Bruce. She told him that he was forgetting their main goal, which was to save up enough money to get Diego's little brother out of the orphanage. Eros was shocked. He had no idea why Peyton was so angry, but he knew that he had to go back to Reese. Back at the bar with Peyton and Diego by her side, Reese tried her best to fit in. She wasn't just there to hang out with Eros's friends, though. She was there to get closer to him. She ordered the same drink Eros had, hoping it would give her some liquid courage. When she was right in front of him, their lips were inches from each other. They were so close that their hearts were beating in unison. But just as they were about to kiss, Eros pulled away. Eros was confused. One minute he was the life of the party, and the next he was a lonely soul. Reese asked him what was wrong, and he told her that he was thinking about his parents' car crash. He told her that he had always blamed himself for their death, and that he couldn't help but think that the police were right about it being his fault. Reese's heart broke for him. She told him that no amount of self-blame could bring them back. She told him that it was okay to mourn, but that he shouldn't punish himself for a mistake he didn't make. Eros smiled at her and felt like she was different from the other rich kids he knew. He felt like she was a good person, but their newfound happiness was short-lived. The next day when they were back at school, the threats started again. This time, they were more personal. The anonymous messages called Reese a cheap girl who was dating a felon. Raul also showed up to humiliate Eros and to make Reese feel bad for being with him. But this time, Raul got a taste of his own medicine. Reese walked up to Eros and sat by his side, leaving Raul alone. Days later, it was Reese's birthday. She was finally happy. All of her friends were there, and she was having the time of her life. But just as she was about to blow out the candles, the threats started again. This time, they were worse than before. Eros had no other choice but to shut down the party and tell everyone to go home. He couldn't risk Reese's safety. When everyone had left, Eros went to look for the person who was threatening her. He searched the entire house, but he couldn't find anyone. He was about to give up when he noticed a hidden room. He went inside and saw a bunch of old family photos. He looked at them and saw a picture of his parents with Reese's parents. He was shocked. He had no idea that their parents knew each other. But what shocked him the most was the woman in the picture. He had no idea who she was. He found Reese and showed her the picture. She was just as confused as he was. She told him that she would ask her father about it when he got back from his business trip. The next day, Reese got a bouquet of flowers. She smiled and went to get them. But when she read the card, her heart sank. The flowers were not from her father. The card wished her a happy birthday in the most disturbing way. That day, Reese immediately told Eros about the terrifying note. She was sure that Raul was behind it, and she had a good reason to believe so. He was the only person who had known her since they were kids. That night, Eros and Reese went to Raul's party to search for clues. They went into his room and looked everywhere, but they couldn't find anything. They were about to give up when Raul suddenly came into the room with his new girlfriend. Luckily, they were not caught. As they hid, they listened as Raul told his girlfriend that he had a partner in crime to terrorize Reese. He told her that his partner was someone who had a bone to pick with Reese's father. At that very moment, Reese knocked over something, and they were caught. Caught red-handed, Reese decided to teach Raul a lesson for terrorizing her. Reese was happy. She had gotten the last laugh. She was happy that Eros had helped her, and she was happy that she finally had someone she could count on. She was happy that she finally had someone who made her feel safe. To end the night, Eros and Reese shared a romantic kiss. They thought the night was over, but they were wrong. They thought that they had gotten rid of the stalker, but they were wrong. The next day, Reese found out that their car had been sabotaged. They were lucky to be alive. Eros was devastated. He had tried his best to protect Reese, but he had failed. When Bruce came back from his business trip, he was furious. He knew that Eros was more than a bodyguard. He had seen the CCTV footage of Eros and Reese together. He yelled at Eros and told him that he was nothing but a charity case. He told Eros that he had only helped him because he was a friend of his parents. He told him that he was nothing but a poor boy who had been taken in out of pity. Bruce also explained about the photo Eros found earlier. It was nothing but an accidental photo taken when Bruce had just met Eros's parents. But Eros was not a charity case. He was a professional, and he had a job to do. He told Bruce that he didn't want his pity and that he had never used Reese. He told him that his feelings for Reese were genuine and that he had only wanted to protect her. He told him that he was a poor man, but he had a lot of pride. After their dramatic argument and separation, Eros and Reese both felt a hollow ache in their hearts. A vast and empty void had opened up between them. They knew their worlds were light years apart and that a relationship between them was a pipe dream. Eros spent his days with his friends, lost in his own thoughts. He went to work, came home, and repeated the same old routine. Reese, on the other hand, couldn't get Eros out of her head. She spent her days in his old room, looking at his things and trying to find a piece of him that she could hold on to. One afternoon, while she was looking through his things, she found his old diary. She opened it and saw a bunch of unsettling pictures. They were sketches of ugly rich people, and she and her father were there too. A cold shiver went down her spine as she realized that the man who had been trying to protect her had been the one threatening her. She was heartbroken and disgusted. As if on cue, Eros went to find her. He saw the diary in her hands and his heart sank. He knew he had messed up. He told her that he had drawn those pictures when he first met her and her father. He explained that he had hated rich people for as long as he could remember and that he had been a man of great prejudice. He told her that he had hated her too, but that was a long time ago. His feelings for her had changed. He told her that he had fallen in love with her and that he could never hurt her, let alone terrorize her. He told her that he would never betray her trust. As they stood, the rain began to fall. They both looked at each other, and Eros's words seemed to wash away all of Reese's doubts. They kissed, and it was the most beautiful kiss they had ever shared. Their lips were like two magnets drawn together. It was a kiss that sealed their love. After they were done, they decided to spend the rest of the day together. That night, Reese decided to look at Eros's friends' social media. She wanted to get to know them better, and she was happy to do so. She was shocked when she found out that Peyton worked at her school. She had no idea that they were so close. She went to Eros and asked him about Peyton. She told him that she had a bad feeling about Peyton and that she had a feeling that Peyton was the one who was threatening her. Eros was furious. He couldn't believe that Reese would accuse Peyton of such a thing. He told her that he was disappointed in her. He told her that she was acting just like the other rich kids who were so quick to judge people. He told her that if she wanted to be with him, she had to stop judging his friends. He left her there, heartbroken and alone. With Reese's accusations still swirling in his head, Eros found himself on a razor's edge. Her suspicions had ignited a cold fire in his gut, and he couldn't stop thinking about what Peyton had said at the club. At the time, her words had just seemed like a mix of jealousy and anger, but now he could hear the hatred behind them. It was real, and it was serious. With a sense of dread, he asked Peyton where she had been for the last 3 days. He was worried sick when he couldn't get a hold of her. Peyton, however, was not worried. She was as cool as a cucumber. She told him that she had just been working extra shifts at the bar. He asked her why she was working so much, and she told him that it was none of his business. He went on to tell her about Reese's accusations. He told her that Reese thought she was the one who was threatening her. He told her that Reese had found out that she was working as a janitor at her school. He asked her if any of it was true. Peyton didn't say anything. She just looked at him with an icy stare. She asked him why he would believe a spoiled brat girl over his best friend. She told him that he was not a good friend. She accused him of betraying her. She told him that he had fallen for Reese. Eros couldn't say anything. Every question she asked was like a shot to the heart, but he still didn't have his answers. He was still in the dark. He kept asking her why she had been at Reese's school. She finally confessed that she was working there as a cleaner. She told him that she was embarrassed to tell him because she didn't want him to think less of her. Eros was shocked. He couldn't believe that his best friend had kept such a big secret from him. He felt like he didn't know her anymore. He felt like she had been living a double life. He asked her if she had been the one threatening Reese. The question hung in the air like a sword. Peyton looked at him with a sense of betrayal. She was furious. She couldn't believe that he would accuse her of such a thing. She told him that he was acting like a fool. Eros, however, was in a blind rage. He kept yelling at her, and she, in a fit of panic, hurt her best friend. Eros fainted. The accident was a wake-up call for Peyton. Peyton's heart hammered in her chest as she knew that Reese was looking for Eros, and she couldn't let her see him passed out in the kitchen. She ran out of the house and told Reese to wait in the basement, not wanting Reese to see that Eros had fainted in the kitchen. Reese was confused, but she went to the basement anyway. But just as Peyton was about to breathe a sigh of relief, she saw a car pull up to the house. It was Bruce. He had gotten a text from Reese that she was going to Eros's house, and he was worried sick. Peyton looked at Bruce with a cold stare. She pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. She was tired of hiding. She was tired of living a lie. As Eros finally woke up from his fainting, Peyton finally dropped the bombshell. She was the one who had been threatening Reese all this time. She had used Eros to get closer to Reese and Bruce. Reese was shocked. The woman she had been so jealous of was actually a criminal. But Peyton wasn't done. She had a story to tell, and she wasn't going to stop until she was done. 16 years ago, Peyton's mother and Eros's parents worked at Bruce's restaurant. The restaurant had horrible working conditions. The hours were long and the pay was horrible. But her mom had a dream. She wanted to give Peyton a better life. She wanted to work hard and save up enough money to send Peyton to a good school. But her dreams were shattered when Bruce had a party at his restaurant. The restaurant went up in flames, and her mom and Eros's parents were killed. It was all because Bruce had been careless. He had left a candle burning, and the fire had spread like wildfire. He also didn't have any fire extinguishers or insurance for his workers. Peyton was heartbroken. She couldn't believe that a man who had so much money would be so careless. She told him that his charity work and his connections couldn't bring back the people she had lost. She told him that his money couldn't bring back her mother or Eros's parents. She told him that she had been waiting for this moment for 16 years. She had been waiting for the day she could finally get her revenge. Then Peyton turned to Reese. She told her that her mom, Bruce's own wife, was also killed in the fire. Reese was shocked. She had no idea that her mom was also a victim of the fire. Peyton told Reese that all the blame was put on Eros, and that he was the one who was made to suffer. She told her that she and Eros had been broken for 16 years. She told her that it was time for Bruce to pay for what he had done. She said that her revenge was only just beginning. Peyton raised the gun, her hand steady, her eyes full of venom. She was about to pull the trigger, but before she could, Eros leaped forward. He was still weak from the head injury, but adrenaline gave him a surge of strength. He grabbed her arm, and they wrestled for the gun. She managed to push him away and ran toward Bruce. She shot him, and he fell to the ground. The police arrived moments later and arrested Peyton. After the incident, Eros walked up to Reese, his heart in his throat. He looked at her and felt nothing but shame. He told her he was sorry for everything that had happened. He apologized for not protecting her and for not seeing the truth sooner. Reese looked at him with tears in her eyes. She told him that he had nothing to apologize for. She was the one who was sorry. She was sorry for her father's actions and for everything he had done. She told him that she knew that it was her father's carelessness that had killed their parents. She told him that he was justified in hating her and that he had every right to leave her. Eros looked at her, stunned. He took her hand in his and told her that he had no one else in the world. He told her that she was the only one he had left. He told her that he had no idea what to say, but that he would never leave her because he loved her. The words were simple, but they were everything Reese had ever wanted to hear. After everything was said and done, Eros and Reese used the money from Bruce's inheritance to help the victims of the fire. They also got Diego's little brother out of the orphanage. They opened a dance and ballet agency with the money, and they worked together to make it a success. Their company grew to be one of the biggest creative and arts companies in Spain. They had finally found happiness. Eros, who was once a broken man and an outcast, was now a successful businessman. He had everything he had ever wanted, but most importantly, he had Reese. She was the reason he was still alive. She was the reason he was happy. She was the reason he had found his purpose in life. Reese, too, was no longer a spoiled rich girl. She was a woman who had found her purpose in life. She was no longer a damsel in distress. She was a strong, independent woman who had found her strength in her love for Eros. The boy who was once her bodyguard was now the love of her life. He was a man who had changed her life for the better, and she was forever grateful for him.